one soldier, 3 different armies, and he somehow survived them all. This is the story of a man who got captured so many times that he ended up fighting for both sides of World War II without ever meaning to. His name was Yang Kyung-jong. And if you think your life has taken some unexpected turns, wait until you hear what happened to this guy. Because what he went through is so crazy that most people think it's made up. But it's not. Every single part of this story actually happened. And it starts in a place you wouldn't expect. Korea, 1938. Yang Kyung-jong was just 18 years old. He was living under Japanese rule because Japan had taken over Korea back in 1910. And if you were a young Korean man during this time, you had basically no rights. The Japanese were forcing Koreans to take Japanese names, speak Japanese, and forget their own culture. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the conscription. Japan was at war with China, and they needed soldiers, lots of them. So they started drafting young Korean men into their army whether they wanted to go or not. And Yang Kyung-jong, he didn't want to go. Nobody did. But he didn't have a choice. So in 1938, he gets thrown into the Japanese Imperial Army. He's given a uniform, a rifle, and sent thousands of miles away from home to fight in a war he doesn't care about for a country that's oppressing his own people. Imagine that for a second. You're forced to fight for the people who took over your homeland, the people who are trying to erase your culture, and if you refuse, you're dead. Simple as that. Yang gets sent to Manchuria. That's the northeastern part of China, and it's brutal. The fighting is constant. The conditions are terrible. Japanese soldiers are known for their harsh discipline, and Korean conscripts like Yang are treated even worse than regular Japanese troops. They're seen as second-class soldiers, expendable. But Yang survives. Month after month, he's dodging bullets, dealing with the freezing cold winters, and trying not to get killed. He's probably thinking that if he can just make it through this, maybe he can go home one day. Maybe this nightmare will end. Except it doesn't end. It gets worse. 1939 turns into 1940, and then 1941. The war keeps going. And then in 1942, Yang's unit gets sent to a new location. They're being positioned along the Mongolian border. Why? Because there's tension brewing between Japan and the Soviet Union. See, Japan and the Soviets had already fought some battles in 1939 at a place called Khalkhin Gol. Japan lost, badly, but they still have troops stationed in the area, just in case. And Yang Kyung-jong is one of those troops. Then in 1943, something happens. The Soviets launch an offensive. They come crashing through the Japanese lines like a freight train. Yang's unit tries to fight back, but they're outnumbered and outgunned. The battle is chaos. Soldiers are running everywhere, artillery is exploding, and Yang is just trying to stay alive. But he doesn't. Well, he does stay alive, but he doesn't stay free. The Soviets capture him. Now put yourself in Yang's shoes for a moment. You've spent years fighting for an army you never wanted to join. You've barely survived. And now you're a prisoner of war. You're thinking maybe they'll send you to a camp. Maybe they'll eventually let you go home. Maybe this is finally over. It's not over. The Soviets look at Yang and the other captured soldiers, and they see something useful. They see manpower. See, the Soviet Union is fighting Nazi Germany on the Eastern Front, and that war is a meat grinder. Millions of Soviet soldiers are dying. They need replacements. They need bodies to throw at the Germans. So they make Yang an offer. Actually, it's not really an offer. It's more like a threat. Fight for us, or die in a labor camp. Those are your options. Pick one. Yang picks the first option. What else is he going to do? So now he's in the Red Army, the Soviet Army. He's wearing a different uniform, carrying a different rifle, and being sent to fight a completely different enemy. He's gone from fighting for Japan against China and the Soviets to fighting for the Soviets against Germany. All in the span of a few years. And he still hasn't been home. He's still thousands of miles away from Korea. The Soviets send him west. Way west. All the way to the Eastern Front in Europe. And if you know anything about the Eastern Front in World War II, you know it was absolute hell. This wasn't like the Western Front where you had some rules and some structure. The Eastern Front was brutal, no mercy, no quarter, just constant, grinding, horrific combat. Yang ends up somewhere in Ukraine or Belarus, We don't know the exact location, but we know he was there. And he's fighting the Germans now, the Wehrmacht, the Nazis. He's in the trenches, in the snow, in the mud, watching men die all around him. Soviet commanders had a reputation for not caring about casualties. They would send wave after wave of soldiers at German positions until they broke through. And Yang was one of those soldiers. He survives again, somehow. But in 1944, his luck runs out for the second time. The Germans launch a counterattack. Yang's unit gets overrun, and once again he's captured. Except this time, it's by the Germans. Now he's been captured twice. By two different armies. And he's fought for two different sides in the same war. But it still isn't over. Because now the Germans are looking at him the same way the Soviets did. They see a body. They see someone who can hold a rifle. At this point, Yang must be in complete disbelief. Like, what are the odds? How does this keep happening? But the Germans don't care about his story. They don't care that he's Korean. They don't care that he never wanted to be a soldier in the first place. They give him another uniform, another rifle, and they send him west again. Now Yang Kyung-jong is fighting for Nazi Germany. He's in the Wehrmacht. Specifically, he ends up assigned to a unit that gets sent to France. And this is 1944. The Allies are about to invade. D-Day is coming. The Germans are preparing for the invasion. They're fortifying the Atlantic Wall, which is this massive line of defenses along the coast of France. Bunkers, machine gun nests, artillery positions, mines, barbed wire, everything. And Yang is stationed somewhere along that wall. Just another soldier in a unit full of soldiers, most of whom don't even speak the same language as him. Then June 6, 1944 arrives. D-Day. The largest amphibious invasion in history. Thousands of Allied ships appear off the coast. Planes fill the sky. And then the bombardment starts. Naval guns, bombs, rockets. The beach defenses get absolutely hammered, and then the landing craft start coming in. Thousands of them. American, British, Canadian soldiers pouring onto the beaches. And the Germans are firing back with everything they have. It's chaos on a scale that's hard to even imagine. Yang is somewhere in the middle of all this. He's been through so much already, survived so many impossible situations, and now he's facing the full might of the Allied invasion. His unit is fighting desperately to hold their position. But it's hopeless. The Allies have too many men, too many tanks, too much firepower. Eventually, Yang's position gets overrun. For the third time in this war, he becomes a prisoner. But this time, it's different. This time, his captors are American paratroopers. And the Americans are confused, very confused. They're fighting their way through France, capturing German soldiers left and right. Most of them look like you'd expect German soldiers to look like. But then they find Yang, and the Americans are looking at this guy like, wait a minute. You don't look German. What's going on here? Yang can't speak English. The Americans can't speak Korean. He tries to explain, probably through hand gestures and broken bits of whatever languages he's picked up over the years. And slowly, the story comes out. The Americans realize they've just captured a Korean soldier fighting for Nazi Germany, which makes no sense until they hear the full story. Yang tells them everything. How he was conscripted by the Japanese, how he was captured by the Soviets, how he was captured by the Germans, how he never wanted to be a soldier at all, let alone fight for 3 different armies. And the Americans are just stunned, because this story is so insane that it sounds like someone made it up. But Yang has been through all of it. He's living proof. So the Americans take him as a prisoner of war, but they treat him differently than the German POWs. They can see he's not a Nazi. He's not even German. He's just a guy who got screwed over by history in the worst possible way. They send him to a POW camp in England first, and then eventually to the United States. A camp in Illinois, actually. And for the first time in 6 years, Yang isn't being shot at. He's not fighting. He's not being forced to march or dig trenches or charge into machine gun fire. He's just existing, processing what happened to him. The war ends in 1945. Germany surrenders. Japan surrenders. It's finally over. And Yang is still alive. Against all odds, he survived. After the war ends, Yang eventually gets released. He doesn't go back to Korea right away, though. Korea is a mess after the war, divided between Soviet and American occupation zones. It's not exactly a safe place to return to. So Yang stays in the United States. He settles down, tries to build a normal life, tries to forget about everything he went through. And for the most part, his story gets forgotten too. Nobody really knows about Yang Kyung-jong for decades. It's only later, years after the war, that people start piecing together what happened to him. Historians find records, survivors share stories, and slowly the truth comes out about this soldier who fought for 3 different armies. Think about what Yang went through: 6 years of war, 3 different armies, captured 3 times, forced to fight in battles on 2 different continents, watched thousands of men die around him, and somehow he made it through all of it. The odds of survival were astronomically low at every single point in his journey. But he beat them. Some people doubt this story. They think it's too crazy to be true. But there's evidence. There are records from the camps. There are testimonies from other soldiers. There's even a famous photograph from D-Day that some people think shows Yang. A picture of a captured Asian soldier in a German uniform looking confused and exhausted. We can't say for sure if that's him, but it might be. What we do know for sure is that Yang's story represents something bigger than just one man's experience. It shows how brutal and chaotic war really is, how ordinary people get caught up in forces beyond their control, how empires and governments treat human beings as disposable pieces on a game board. Yang didn't want to be a soldier. He didn't care about Japanese imperialism or Soviet communism or Nazi fascism. He just wanted to live his life. But history had other plans, and he got dragged through hell because of it. The fact that he survived is incredible. The fact that he kept his sanity is even more incredible. Most people would have broken down completely after going through even a fraction of what Yang experienced. But he kept going. Step by step, day by day, battle by battle. There's no Hollywood ending here. Yang didn't become famous. He didn't write a best-selling memoir. He just lived quietly in America and eventually passed away. His story is only known now because historians dug into the records and found these incredible details. But that story deserves to be remembered, because it's one of the most insane survival stories from World War II, maybe from any war. 1 soldier, 3 armies, and somehow he made it through all of them. Subscribe if you want more stories like this.